Hey, good Saturday afternoon. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions. 540-0580. Call in right now, 540-0580. You want to talk about the law? I was in a jury trial this week. We had a pretty good result on that. It was pretty Shane's shaking his head over there. He got the news as well. One of these cases where I had to ask the jury to answer a tough question, which is, we're not saying we didn't do what they say. We're just saying we didn't do everything they say. It's like the old "I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy" song, and I think the jury got it right. They sorted through the facts and came to the same conclusion that I thought they should. Obviously, I'm a paid advocate, right? And that means that it's my duty as the defense attorney in a criminal case, as it's the duty of the prosecutor in a criminal case, to argue the case in a light most favorable to their side. But on a personal level, I think they got it right as well. And then sometimes my personal feelings and my professional feelings are two different things, as they are for prosecutors, I'm sure. And I think sometimes people forget that. When you go to court and you think that the prosecutor really wants to see this person found guilty and the defense attorney really wants to find this person found innocent, they both may really feel that way, or they both may not really feel that way in any given trial. And you're not going to know that if they're doing their jobs right, because contrary to popular belief, prosecutors don't simply prosecute to put people in jail. Sometimes they prosecute people because the law requires it, even if they have sympathy for them. I would bet there's a lot of prosecutors, if we could get them off the record, would tell us that marijuana is not such a big deal anymore. Joe, you're on WHP 580. What's going on?
Hey, I'm like many guys. I find myself in a bad situation after a couple decades of marriage, and I want to try and find out something from you, Carl.
Yeah.
Can the man who's paying the mortgage ask the wife to leave? In this situation, my wife hasn't worked most of the marriage and really doesn't really want to. So
right.
I'm stuck working two jobs and paying the mortgage. And if I leave, I'm still going to be stuck paying the mortgage, or my credit's going to be ruined.
Yeah, and okay, there's no right answer to that question. What do I mean by that is, if the parties can work out an understanding, that's great. Otherwise, somebody's got to leave at some point, although you can file a divorce without leaving, believe it or not. And you can start working through the divorce while you guys live under the same roof. That sometimes leads to lots of bad consequences, poisoned meals, all kinds of things, But my point is, yeah, could you ask her? And she says, no, I'm not leaving, you leave. And then you have to make the tough choice. Now, we can go to court and ask for what's called the exclusive use of the marital residence and ask a judge to kick somebody out. But I can hear the judge right now. Well, what's your plan? She doesn't have a big income, Mr. Rominger, so if I kick her out, where is she going? Is your guy going to rent the apartment? And then it sounds like you're stuck paying for the apartment and the mortgage. So we'd have to sit down and go over everything, but I would tell you that there's no good answer to that. The smart answer, though, is if nobody can afford it, meaning if you're the only one that can afford it but you're not going to stay, working out a deal to sell it sometimes is a good way to go.
Well, that's probably the way I'd go, but it needs a few things in the market the way it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
It'd probably be best to fix the house, just fix the things that need to be done, and then sell the house, which would be fine. But in the meantime, neither one wants to leave. And is there alimony in the state? In other words,
yes,
the kids are all grown, so there's no child
support. You do risk alimony in the state of Pennsylvania. However, as long as you're under the same roof, arguably they're not going to be entitled to spousal support if the divorce is filed, and that's the kind of support that kicks in. There's also something called APL, which is very similar to spousal support. But long and short of it is, once a divorce is filed, you can end up paying support pending the resolution of the divorce. If you're residing under the same roof and sharing the bills, et cetera, there's a pretty good argument that that's not appropriate yet.
Okay, one more quick question, and I won't hold you.
It's okay.
When you mentioned the risk of alimony, for all those guys out there right now that are working two jobs while their wives stay home, do you mean because I have a high income because of working two jobs, I could risk having to support her the rest of her life? And
well, and the two-job analysis is interesting because, for instance, in support court, for instance, in child support matters, for a long time it was unclear whether or not if you had two jobs, you had to keep two jobs. And what most, the counties were all over the map, but it seems pretty clear now that for the most part, you're only going to be held to one full-time job. You're not going to be held to your two full-time jobs. That said, you could give one up. Now, if you're still getting the income, you're getting the income for different calculations. But here's the problem with alimony. It's based on a nebulous series of factors. And, in fact, when math is used to calculate alimony, meaning, a mathematical formula, the courts have said that's an error. They have to, quote, weigh the factors. And, yeah, in any given situation, like if you've been working 72 hours a year all the years of the marriage, the judge might make a pretty good argument, well, hey, that's the way you guys have always done it. On the other hand, if you've only picked up extra hours in the last few years because the economy's tighter, and you had extra expenses, a judge might say to her, I'm not going to hold him to 72 hours. I'm going to base it on him, relaxing a little bit and going back to 40 hours. So there's no firm answer to that. Now, I can tell you that there's a trend in the law, it's been written up in major newspapers, and there's no great change in Pennsylvania law, but there's been a change nationwide and starting to be reflected in Pennsylvania to go away from this alimony that lasts forever and move towards okay, mama's going to need some money to get on her feet because she hasn't worked historically, so we're going to give her 4 years of alimony at the following rate, but if at 4 years she hasn't figured out how to get a job or what to do, then too bad, so sad. So there's a whole gambit of possibilities.
I thought I heard you one time before say there was no such thing as alimony in Pennsylvania, so I must have misunderstood.
Yeah, no, there is, and in fact, there's two kinds. There's definite, and then there's indefinite. Indefinite goes on forever, or terminates on certain conditions, and it can be modified at any time. So I just filed a modification alimony for a client who's had a change in financial circumstances, and he doesn't want to keep paying the same monthly amount that the court had awarded, 4 or 5 years back, because he has a lot less income now. So we're going to go to court, and the judge is going to probably, jigger it down. The question is whether he puts it down far enough to make it comfortable or not. All right, Joe, I guess the answer is probably want to sit down with a guy like me, and we'll try to work some hard numbers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, brother. Bye. Yeah, I mean, it's a little, there's no mathematical. See, we're not a community property state, which means we don't split property down the middle the way they do in some states. We're an equitable distribution state, meaning we kind of use a touchy-feely series of factors to be fair to the parties. And probably one of these days we should put all the statutory factors up on the website so people could look through those. 540-0580. And, of course, don't forget to stop in at weekendappointment.com. Deborah, how are you?
Yes. All right. Yourself?
Good.
Yeah, Carl, I have a question. 11 years ago, my husband was convicted of harassment charges.
Okay.
We are now, because of the times we live in, thinking about buying a handgun for home protection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not exactly sure where the harassment charges fall as far as felony class, but I guess my question is, at this point, would he be allowed to own a handgun?
Well, harassment in Pennsylvania is only graded as a summary or a misdemeanor. However, if it's graded as a misdemeanor and the victim is your spouse, girlfriend, or paramour, then it would be graded as a crime of domestic violence, and then it would, under the Lautenberger Amendment, you would be unable to own a firearm as that person.
Well, I was the one. We got into a fight.
Right. I understand.
Okay.
But if you were the, quote, victim, then it would be graded as a crime. And did he plead it to as a summary or as a misdemeanor?
That I'm not sure.
So if he pled as a summary, he can just go buy a handgun, and then he'll pass the background check. If it was pled as a misdemeanor, if you want, you might be able to look it up. If you go to weekendappointment.com, we've got the link to the web doc. It's on there under resources, and you could follow that link and potentially look it up and see if it's graded as a misdemeanor or a summary.
So a misdemeanor, he would be allowed.
Would not be allowed. Summary, he would.
Summary, he would.
Which,
right.
Deborah, lesson for everybody out there. If you're charged with a crime, no matter how minor it is, get a lawyer and find out ahead of time how it's going to affect your firearms rights.
Well, I think you actually represented him.
Okay. So I don't know what, and maybe we had to take a misdemeanor because sometimes, there's no way around it.
Mm-hmm.
All
right.
So if he looks it up, or if you call me off there, I'd probably look it up then because I just need a last name, but don't give it to me on the air.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, and remember that I always try to make sure people know that one of my questions for people, you own guns, you like to hunt, and then they go, yeah. Like, well, then why do you want to plead guilty to that? And they say, oh, I didn't know that was going to affect that. Nobody told me that. Well, you can lose your firearms rights very easily these days by pleading guilty to minor crimes and just paying fines. 540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Five 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. Don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com to download your free will kit. Send that in, and we'll get you a will written. If you haven't had a will updated in a while, it's time to do it because the price is right. It's absolutely free if you sign up on the website. And we do have people call in the office every once in a while who have no idea I have a radio show, and then they pay for a will because if it comes in on the free will kit, it's free. If it comes in as a phone call and you don't ask for the free will and you're not a registered member of weekendappointment.com, you're not going to get the free will. Also, I think we debuted we're running best of shows on WIOO Country Gold in the mornings on Saturday. So if you can't get enough of us and you catch the signal for Country Gold out of Carlisle, it goes all the way to Chambersburg and around, you can hear reruns at, Shane, is it at 8 o'clock in the morning? Is that what it is? Shane, do you know? 8 o'clock in the morning on Country Gold, is that what it is? Okay. He was sleeping in there. Charles.
Yes. Oh, hello. Hi there. Hey.
Hey.
I had a question for you. My wife's been on a workman's comp for about 5 years.
Okay.
Well, we just got a letter that her or I don't know if it's an IRA or a 401k, but her employer he terminated her employment, and then he took all her money out of her IRA. Now, we have a lawyer looking into it, but he hasn't got back to us, so we're just curious to know where we stand at.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it depends on what the IRA rules or the 401k rules were, whether she was vested or not, I guess. But it would sound like if she'd been there a long time, she probably should have been vested.
Yeah.
So that would be my thumbnail answer.
I'm sorry?
That's my thumbnail answer is if she was vested, they can't take the money out of it. If she wasn't vested, depending on what the rules are, and of course I don't know off the top of my head what kind of retirement account she had and exactly what the rules were that applied to it. But I can tell you, like the 401k that I have for my employees says, as long as you're here X period of time, it vests. If you leave, the money comes out of your account, but it doesn't go back to the owner. It gets divided amongst the other employees.
Okay. All right.
All right.
No, that sounds good. I
All
appreciate you taking the time there. Hey, you have a good one.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, and sometimes you got to see the rule book, so to speak. John, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Carl?
Good, man. Good. What's going?
I want to give you high fives and kudos and accolades. The other day when you were on Durgan,
Yeah.
and they beat you up after you got off of there. And why people can't understand common sense and what the law is beyond me.
Well, if they want to kick me when I'm not there, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I sometimes just have to tell people the way it is. Not that I'm always right, but a lot of times, people don't like the law. They forget that my job as a lawyer is not to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah. Now I got a question for you. In the news last couple of weeks has been this All Care dental place that went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the Attorney General went from the Attorney General to the Governor.
Right.
And before that happened, it was said that they didn't know if they were going to bring any charges against them.
Right.
I'd like you to comment on that. The other thing I want you to comment on is you had that tragedy with the 4 Mannheim students in that accident.
Right.
But you never heard anything about the poor people that they hit.
Right. All I know about that one is it's still under investigation, and it seems like, from what I can tell from the newspapers, is they may have been making some kind of video. And interestingly, while that's a tragedy, the people that they hit may be the ones who have a lawsuit against the estates of the driver or others who were involved in the accident if they caused it. I was in the unfortunate position one time. I had a young lady who was hurt in a car accident where her car was struck by a motorcycle, and the motorcyclist had died because he was trying to do a wheelie or some crazy thing,
right.
And it impacted her car at a high rate of speed and hurt her and the passenger. And, of course, He's dead. His parents are upset, and I'm opening an estate because nobody wanted to open an estate for the decedent, you know. So I'm forcing the issue of opening an estate to sue the estate of somebody's dead child, and of course they're not very happy with me. But that was what we had to do in order to get justice, so to speak, for the gal who was the actual victim. So it's sometimes we forget that who the victim in an accident is, or who the victim in a tragedy is, isn't always the person with the worst injury.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted you to comment because you never heard anything about the 58-year-old man that was, or I think it was a man, 58-year-old driving the other vehicle that got hit.
Right. And that's.
And I know it was a tragedy, and I feel bad for the 4 students and their families, but.
Well, and you have to remember that sometimes that's how these things start out, because from the press standpoint, if you've got 4 deceased youths, it makes a better story than one injured 58-year-old.
Yeah, but the rest of us get stuck wondering what happened.
Right. Well, and I agree. What was the other thing you wanted me to comment on?
The All Care Dental place.
Oh, yeah.
In 13 states, the Attorney General said, call me with your complaints. If you, all these people paid all that money up front to get the work done, and it seems to me somebody was tipping the till, and then all of a sudden they're bankrupt. And
right, and of course that's
not fair to us.
That's where you have to get in and figure out what really happened. And what I mean by that is businesses go bankrupt every day. And businesses fail. And so the mere failure of a business, and I'll give you an example. Maybe they depended on some large line of credit that they had from, let's say, Citibank or Bank of America. I'm just making this up. But let's say They depended on a large line of credit, and suddenly that got canceled because the bank just decided they weren't going to loan it to them anymore because of the way the economy was, whatever the reason, or they ran out, it expired and had to be renewed. And, of course, 5 years ago they'd write anybody a line of credit, and today they won't write anybody a line of credit. So it's possible for your business to completely go south on you for no other reason than your access to the credit market changes. And so the next question is, so is somebody criminally responsible for that? So is the owner of the company criminally responsible? Or is Citibank or Bank of America now the bad guy? And they're going to go, hey, we assessed the business risk, we changed our minds, we withdrew the line of credit, and they collapsed. It's not our fault. And then the other guy says, hey, I took everybody's money, but I was using a business model that's worked for the last 15 years. Just they pulled the rug out from underneath me. So that's one scenario. And so as a result, there may never be charges filed against anybody, because you can legitimately have a collapse of a business for reasons that were, foreseeable maybe, but not likely, and therefore it would just sound business judgment. And now everybody's out. It reminds me of like when one of these websites folds and lots of people have ordered items online. You end up getting listed in the bankruptcy.
Wow.
On the other hand, if there was criminal malfeasance, worse is there's probably nobody to go get the money from because they probably wasted it, so everybody's still out. The answer is a lot of times there are wrongs and people are harmed, but there are not always responsible parties, and even when there are responsible parties, there aren't always remedies. And I have this problem in my office quite a bit, trying to explain to people, again, who've had something very terrible happen to them, that you didn't carry the right kind of insurance, so you have nothing available to you. But they hit me, Mr. Rominger. I understand that, but you don't have the right kinds of insurance available in this particular case.
Wow.
Or you got run off the road by a phantom car, somebody who we don't know who it is because they drove away, and you chose not to carry uninsured, underinsured. Therefore, there's no way to get money for your injuries. Well, the insurance guy didn't tell me that. Oh, he didn't have to tell you that. And anyhow, I can go on and on, but you follow where I'm headed with this. So the answer is, what's going to happen with these dental people? I have no idea. I do know that people are owed substantial amounts of money, and the question will be whether there's criminal malfeasance or just one of the big banks shutting somebody down, or because I'm just making that up out of my head. But those are the kinds of things that we see that sometimes cause businesses to collapse. Most people forget. Let me give you an example. Let's say you work for a factory, right? Mm-hmm. And at that factory they buy some kind of raw materials and process it, and out the other side of the door comes finished product. And I don't care what kind of factory it is. You find out a lot of times they don't actually own the metal. They buy it, right? Mm-hmm. But they actually borrow against that metal. So they buy that metal for $20 million, where they actually have $20 million line of credit that they buy the metal with. So the day that the bank says you no longer have a $20 million line of credit, you only have a $10 million line of credit, all of a sudden your production has to go in half because you can't get delivery of the raw materials you need because your line of credit's gone. So a lot of businesses depend on lines of credit, and that's why this banking situation that we've been in for the last few years is so important. When people go, well, why they bail these guys out? Well, part of the reason we bail them out is a lot of their money is tied up making sure that manufacturers have their raw materials. Now, I'm not crying for the banks, trust me. I'm just saying when the banking situation gets tight, it hurts a lot more people than just the bankers because of the fact that so many large industries and big companies rely on borrowed money.
Well, you're doing a good job.
All right, brother, thanks.
Have a good day.
540-0580. Let's take one more call before we go to the break here. Bill. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
I got a question,
Uh-huh.
probably a couple of them. Which is better, a trust or a will?
Well,
What's the difference? And then there's a constitutional will. What is...
I'm not sure of the term constitutional will, but I am familiar with trust, which come in two flavors, revocable and irrevocable. In Pennsylvania, there's not much advantage to an irrevocable trust over a will. In some states, they're very powerful. I think Arizona and New York are the two that are sometimes mentioned, and I don't know if that's true or not, but those are the two I hear mentioned, that their probate law is such. And I did have some relatives in New York who had gone through the probate process, so I know it is much more complicated than the Pennsylvania process, for instance. That said, an irrevocable trust may be better than a will in certain circumstances because it may allow you to push wealth to future generations and avoid tax and nursing homes and things like that. But those arrangements have to be made well ahead of your death to avoid look-back periods, and they have to be made well ahead of your descent into full-time care, for instance. So the short answer is most people only need a simple will. People with moderate amounts of wealth, more than $100,000 in the bank or something like that, and a residence, should start to consider perhaps looking at trusts. And people whose net worth is $1 million or more, if they haven't got into trusts yet, really should. And those are just numbers I'm throwing out there because there are probably people out there who are worth $250,000 who could benefit from a trust, and there are probably people out there who are worth $2 million who really wouldn't see a great benefit from it.
What does it cost generally to set up a trust?
Well,
that depends on the size.
Right, depends on the size, and it depends on what you're doing. But you usually figure a few $1,000s to get things rolling, and then there are carrying costs because if you do an irrevocable trust, it becomes its own taxable entity. So there's then you need people to be the trustee, and you need accounting, and you need So my point being, that's why people with larger amounts of money are more likely to benefit from them because the carrying costs are such that you don't want to tie up a lot of money in maintaining a trust when you don't have a lot of money. Well, I got to go to break, brother.
All righty, thanks.
All right.
Take care.
540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. 540-0580. I was saying a little earlier, I guess we started today at 8 a.m. on Country Gold. I'm sure they love me announcing that here on WHP 580. That's WIOO out of Carlisle. And they broadcast on 2 FM stations and 2 AM stations. So if you listen to Country Gold, you'll be able to catch our best of shows every Saturday at 8 a.m. just in case you can't hear us live here at 2 p.m. And of course, the 8 a.m. is not a repeat of the 2 p.m. as you can figure out for obvious reasons, I'm sure. In the meantime, go to weekendappointment.com if you want to get a hold of us during the week. Also, we have a very, very good podcast from last week. We had Vinny Manfredo from my office on talking about use of force. And we had Paul Chase on talking about how to save your house from foreclosure and or how to do a short sale. So I strongly urge anybody out there who's kind of getting underwater with their mortgage, et cetera, to go back and listen to last week's podcast and learn a little bit about what to do. That was the bonus podcast hour 2, where you're going to hear about that stuff. So if you didn't get a chance last week to listen to the bonus podcast hour, and you're in or if you know somebody who might be having trouble with their mortgage, you can do that. And if you're interested in use of force, you can hear Vinny Manfredo. So in that second hour that we had from last week, you would be able to hear the first half hour is kind of on use of force, and the second half hour is on how to save your house from foreclosure. So pretty good stuff. Let's see who's next here. And of course, they're on weekendappointment.com. Dale, you're on WHP. Hey, Dale.
Hey, Carl, how are you?
Good. What's going on?
Hey, just two things. With your last call, I wanted to let you know, after listening to your advice,
Yes.
I realized how important it was to change from limited tort to full tort on the car.
Yeah.
It costs more, but it seems like you're better protected.
Yes, you're always better off with full tort rather than limited tort. In fact, who was it in my office? One of the gals says to me the other day, she's like, if I learned anything here, it's to go full tort, not limited tort. Because we have so many times we have people come in who are limited tort, and we have to really move heaven and earth to try to get them a reasonable settlement. When they're limited tort, we still have to move heaven and earth, but it's a little easier to do.
But the main question I called for is these new custody laws. They seem to be more, if I'm using the right word, father-friendly?
Well, they're supposed to be more gender neutral, so I guess that's a better way, the right way of saying it. They did not put a presumption of custody in the new law, meaning they did not say it shall be shared unless otherwise, found by the court. Some people wanted that. What they did do, though, is basically rewrite it and make it a little fairer to each side, I guess, in some respects. But I think the overall framework hasn't changed. And if a judge really wanted to, favor one side over the other, they're still going to be able to. But
doesn't the judge have to put it into writing why he favored?
Well, and that's part of the new law is making it a little clearer that the courts can't just sneak out without writing a lengthy explanation of why they did what they did. I get frustrated sometimes when judges do that, when they give you a opinion, and in custody they shouldn't be doing that for a while now, but you get an opinion that doesn't really tell you why they did what they did. It's just an order, and it doesn't have the explanation. And the explanation is important for the parties to have for two reasons. One is you need to know why you don't have your kid or you do have your kid, And number two, sometimes it's a roadmap, which is, Mom, Dad, you're only going to get, every other weekend right now, and here's why. And then you can look at it and go, oh, okay, what the judge is saying is if I would stop switching houses every 2 months and live in one place for a period of time, that might help me. And the judge is saying if I would stop letting my new girlfriend live with me 3 weeks after I start dating her and then break up with her 6 months later and then move a new girl in the house, maybe that would help too. Okay, here's what, and then the client can actually go, okay, I understand what I need to do and start working on creating a more stable environment for the kids.
Okay, thanks. That somewhat answers what I was worrying about.
All right, Dale. Thanks, brother.
Thanks. Bye.
540-0580. Mary, you're on with Carl Rominger. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi. Yeah, I have a question. I had siding put on my house, and I paid it in full at the final inspection.
Okay.
And evidently, I called the company. Evidently, they sold all my personal information to all these other companies. There's like 5 companies now that I get mail from all the time, Chase and Wells Fargo and all those. I know it's coming from this company that put my siding on because my name was spelled wrong, and all this mail that's coming in has that wrong spelling.
Right.
And I called the company and asked them, and he said, oh, no, we don't do that. But it's still happening. I've got 6 Chase right in front of me here, and I have from GE Money, and I have Bank America and Wells Fargo. All these are coming in, and I know it's coming from the people who put my siding on because the spelling of my name is wrong.
Now, here's the question. Did you pay cash to them, or did you use some kind of financing?
I check at final inspection.
Okay, but I mean, you paid them with cash.
Yeah.
I mean, check, but you didn't like sign up for any kind of financing for it.
No.
And so presumably they have the misspelling of your name.
Yeah.
And theoretically, two things. Number one is if they ever did sell it one time, that's all it takes, because after that, these other guys just keep selling the names to each other.
Uh-huh.
The other possibility is that some employee sold the list and the company doesn't know it. I just had a case like that where I had an employer contact me who needed a letter to send to a competing company to say, hey, when our employee left, they took along a big list and you've been mailing it, or at least they've been mailing it on your letterhead. And obviously they became aware of it when an angry client of theirs called up and said, why on earth are you selling my information? I thought you guys didn't do that. And they're saying, we don't. And it turned out an employee stole it and ran off with it.
Well, now I just this week got a little booklet from Wells Fargo, Keeping Your Information Safe and Secure. Well, I think they're the ones that originally sold it. And my question is, should I go to the Attorney General? Because it is a fine. It's illegal.
You certainly could go to them, yes.
Go to the Attorney General.
And I'm not sure what they'll do about it. And like I say, it could be an employee issue, too, meaning somebody else may have scooped that data and sold it to a third party. But I just want to make sure you understand the fact that you're still getting it in the misspelled name doesn't mean that they're repeatedly releasing it or allowing it to happen again and again. Once your name with that misspelling's out there, my name, I can think of a couple things. I get at the office that's misspelled, so I can kind of tell who's using that mailing list or who's buying it, so to speak, and then how it's kind of spread over time.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do when you order a magazine or other things like this, you can purposefully misspell your name by a letter, and that way you can also watch as it spreads, because you'll find that your information is shared by a lot of vendors with people.
Yeah, well, in this day and age when they're stealing your identity, it's kind of scary to get all this in. Oh, I have a whole table full of mail here that's coming with that misspelled name
on it now.
And, of course, what they want me to do is do business with them.
Right. Right.
And so you do suggest I go to the Attorney General?
I don't think it can hurt you. I'm not sure what, maybe they can get a better answer out of these people as to whether they actually sold your name or not. And maybe they did, and they're not going to tell you, or maybe, like I say, somebody else scooped their data and they don't realize it. That happens more than you'd think. I remember I had a girl. She got a couple of Dell computers sent to a Philadelphia apartment, which obviously she hadn't ordered, but for some reason the person had her Social Security number, date of birth, and everything. When we tracked it back, she had just been in the hospital to have a baby. Now, we know that this local hospital did not sell her data to a scammer so that somebody in Philadelphia could steal it. What we did figure out is somebody who works in the hospital must have, skimmed the file and sold the data.
Yeah, it's possible, I guess.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Bye.
540-0580. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. I want to remind you to go to weekendappointment.com. Check us out there. We're going to also be on the Boston radio on the 31st here. So we're going to have a link we have up on the front of weekendappointment.com. You can get a little more information. But I'm going to be on talking about police practices and a little bit about my video where I'm pulled over on the side of the road by the police. So the Boston radio audience up there apparently wants to know more about it. And if you haven't seen the video, go to weekendappointment.com where you can find a video I've posted of a very intelligent law professor. Also, next to it, a video of a not-so-smart lawyer on the side of the road, myself, and you can see what happens. So go to weekendappointment.com. And who have I got next? Mike, you're on the air. Hi, Mike.
Hello. Hey, Carl. My question is, I had the same problem as the lady who just called, but it was with Comcast. What would you suggest for me to do?
She said it's against the law. I'm not sure it's against the law to sell a list of customers. Last I knew, everybody did it. So I'm not sure that it's illegal.
I get all these phone calls now on my cell phone, and the mail just doesn't stop. And I know it was them because they spelled my name wrong on the caller ID.
Right. Put your phone number on the do not call list. That helps.
Yeah.
Because that should get you off of at least those phone calls. As for the mail, the answer is we all get piles and piles of junk mail. And I don't know what you do about that. Except you could start writing everybody back and saying, I'm not going to do anything because you misspelled my name and you bought it from Comcast.
Yeah,
What do you do? Cancel Comcast and get the other cable company? You're kind of stuck there.
Catch-22.
Yeah. And so I don't know if there's a great legal remedy to it, and I've never been one to much care about a pile of junk mail. I figure if they want to send it to me, great. One of the other fun things you can do, if they do send you those return receipt envelopes that are prepaid postage, just stuff it back with all their garbage in it. Say, take me off your list and send it back, and you can at least zap them for the return postage.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Carl. Thank you.
All right, man. Yeah, junk mail. It's like spam. In fact, weekendappointment.com, Shane and I spend a lot of time whacking the spam off of there because the spammers, these Russian Viagra salesmen, just love to post on there if we have to get away with it. So what we did now, actually, is we moderate the users, which means when you sign up, you can post your question, but not until you've been moderated to make sure you're a real live human being. So if you need to get hold of us right away or you can't wait a day or two for your account to be activated so you can post your question, just make sure you look up the phone number and shoot me an email or call me. And you can do that all on weekendappointment.com. But that way, if you won't be able to post the instant you join now, simply because I got sick and tired of reading about Viagra on my website. Ken, you're on WHP 580. What's going on?
This is me?
Yep.
Hey, I have a question. Unfortunately, because of the economy and my wife losing her job after 37 years of closed down and moved out of the country, we were in financial disaster. We had to claim bankruptcy, and that hearing's coming up in the near future. My question to you is, when I go to do my taxes today, is that going to affect our taxes?
The short answer is I'm not sure how bankruptcy affects your taxes in the sense that some debt forgiveness might be considered taxable, but I'm not sure. So only thing I can tell you is, as I tell everybody who calls this show, I'm just a stupid lawyer. When you need tax advice, you want to talk to a CPA.
Okay.
All right?
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's the best I can do.
All right.
Bye. Yeah, we really, there's a reason why you don't get your tax advice from lawyers, and the answer is we don't really know nothing unless we go get one of those LLMs in tax, and I would have had to stay in school another year, and I ain't going to do that. Bill, you're on WHP 580. What's going on? Hey, Bill.
Hey, thanks for your show. I've got a question.
Yeah.
I had a PFA brought against me, which is a whole other story. It was completely bogus. But anyway, the PFA has run its course.
Okay.
I voluntarily surrendered my weapons that I had. The state law, Title 23, Section 6108 says that they need to give me my weapons back after the thing, if I've paid everything I'm supposed to pay, and blah, 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 and there should be no more costs incurred. The Sheriff's Department is refusing to do that. They need a court order, and to file that court order is $75, and they've told me that this is based on case law by a judge, and I was just wondering, I mean, to me, that's completely not constitutional by the very people who are supposed to be following the law and upholding the Constitution. I don't understand how this has happened.
Well, I'd have to see the actual case, and it wouldn't be the first time that a county, a sheriff's office, a clerk of courts, or somebody has tried to collect something that they really can't. That said, they usually can get the legislation jiggered later on to make sure they can. So I don't know what they're talking about, and I'm unaware of it. It doesn't surprise me that they're trying to tax you for some amount of cost here. So, Bill, if you'd like to shoot me an email off the air, I would really like to look into it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, just go to weekendappointment.com. You get my email there. Shoot me an email, and give me the sites or the resources that you found so far, because I want to take a look. What county are we dealing with?
Franklin.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not in legalese. This is not in, 1782 Pennsylvania constitutional colloquialisms. This is in 8th grade English.
Right.
I mean, a waterhead could figure this out. And I'm like, really? You guys serious right now that you are the very people that are supposed to be upholding this, and you're just not going to do that?
And the short answer is, talking about Franklin County, I was in Fulton County the other day, and they got a sign on the door that says, put your firearm back in your car. And I'm thinking, really? Because there's a statute that says I get to put my firearm in a lockbox at the courthouse because you have to do that. And, they're like, well, we're in remodeling right now, so that's just kind of what we've done. We'll probably go back once everything's done being remodeled. And I'm like, okay. So, yeah, I mean, to say that there might be a misunderstanding or that the law might not be being interpreted correctly is quite possible.
Okay.
All right, Bill.
I appreciate it.
All right. We got a Chambersburg office down there.
Yes.
We're right across from the courthouse. If you walk out the front doors of the Chambersburg courthouse, my office is right there on the right by the coffee shop.
Oh, okay.
All right, brother.
Thanks.
Yes, we have a location in Chambersburg, a location in Carlisle, and as we've been announcing here on WHP 580, a location in Lancaster. I know you guys are using it because lots of people are calling us from Lancaster, and a couple of the other lawyers were down there the other day meeting with folks. I think I'm going to be in Lancaster here pretty soon myself. So make sure, if you didn't want to make that drive up to Carlisle, or if you're from Dauphin County, we will meet with you in Harrisburg. We're looking for a good location in Harrisburg. I'm working on that right now. So hopefully we'll have the Dauphin County location here for you very shortly. But as of right now, we're in Lancaster. So if you don't want to drive all the way to Carlisle, come on down and see us. And, of course, you can get all the contact information at weekendappointment.com. And don't forget, folks, we're going to be on at 8 a.m. on Country Gold, WIOO, every Saturday is the best of shows. And, of course, we're going to be here on WHP 580 every Saturday at 2 live. So make sure you check it out. And make sure you check out last week's podcast. Really great stuff on there. You can also get that on my Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, just friend me and I'll accept the request. See you next week.